Hey everybody, Spin Cycle News here. I just wanted to one thing that is on my mind lately is the Larry Ellison and the Murdoch family's takeover of TikTok. I especially have this question for Gen Zers. How do you feel about this? Larry Ellison is a very right-wing Zionist supporter of Israel. And I don't know if you saw Benjamin Yahoo, if you watch my video with the Tim Dillon show, he covered this as well. They are buying TikTok, Ellison and the Murdoch family, because Trump initiated it in his first term and then Biden went along with it as well. I mean, I don't know if you Gen Zers realize it, but they're all basically in this together. It's the billionaires against us. And Ellison and his son are buying TikTok. That's another big problem we have in not only America but the world is nepotism. These kids are born into billions of dollars, and they just don't think like you and me, people who have worked their whole life, or in Gen Z's case, starting to work and and know how much stuff costs, how much rent costs in the U.S., how much food costs in the U.S., and you know, we have these kids, you know, uh, Ben Salman, the Prince of Saudi Arabia, is another one. They have no idea what work is or how much stuff costs, and they're basically taking over the world, you know, by buying influence. And it's not going to happen. The takeover of the world and the economies is not going to happen through wars anymore. It's going to happen through influence. So these guys taking over TikTok, which is arguably the biggest platform. I don't know the exact numbers, maybe next to YouTube. But I'm curious to what you guys think about that. I see nobody's on the live stream now, so it is kind of late right now. Um, so what do you think about these guys taking TikTok, buying TikTok, and they're not only buying TikTok, but they're buying the algorithm. These far right-wing Zionists and their children, who basically, are looking to win the hearts and minds of Gen Z through TikTok and take over the world, basically. I mean, Larry Ellison now owns CBS, Paramount. The Murdoch family owns Fox and Wall Street Journal, and then a bunch of other media companies. We used to have rules in the country, in the U.S. The fairness doctrine, where the three networks that existed back in the 50s and 60s, they had to show, they had to be fair about things. That, they would lose their license if they were way right wing, like Fox. Um, So I'm curious to you Gen Zers out there, how do you feel about Ellison and these guys taking over TikTok, and particularly the algorithm? Because once they get a hold of the algorithm, they'll be able to do whatever they want, right? They'll be able to, so people like me who speak out against nepotism and billionaires, they're going to basically quiet us. They're not going to, give us any platform on TikTok. And I think it's eventually going to happen with YouTube too. Also, besides that, besides, billionaires taking over all of the media, then you have, I don't know if you saw it in the news this morning that Trump, he used to hate Qatar, but then they started giving him $400 million planes and, buying his Bitcoin. I don't know if you know it now, but his children through crypto are now billionaires since he became president, and he's doubled his wealth. Basically, it's all just a scheme against us. By us, I mean working class people, people who weren't born into great amounts of wealth. What happened to freedom of religion and the Constitution and the Geneva Convention and the Native Rights Act? Yeah, I mean, basically, since the Trump administration took over, they just do whatever they want. They don't, the Geneva Convention, yeah, I don't ever hear people talk about that anymore. Also, guys, you Gen Zers, this is off topic, but I've been, the news just gets me crazy these days. So I've been getting back into when I was young. I'm an older guy, but when I was a kid, I used to read all the time, voracious reader, and I started reading again. I just finished the Emerald Mile, which is about a river expedition or race on the Grand Canyon, which is a great book. It's nonfiction. It has nothing to do with politics. It has a little to do with politics. It, they go into a little bit about the fight over, the dams and stuff on the Colorado River and how they stopped dams, 3 dams or 2 dams from going in the Colorado. But if you guys want to, especially Gen Z, if you want to learn stuff, start reading again. Now I'm reading another book that I'm rereading that I read when I was a kid, Slapstick from Kurt Vonnegut, which is actually, it's fiction, but if you read it, it's like a dystopian novel about how the world basically ends. It's funny fiction, but it's basically a prediction of what's going on now. Hello, Rachel Bosley. Totally and Kids said hi. Hi, how are you? Totally and Kids. I'm good. I'm worried and disturbed about what's going on in the world right now. What I was saying is that if you saw the news this morning, and I'm kind of a news junkie, which is, you know, a problem for your mental health, but that's why I'm saying I read now a lot before bed instead of being on my phone, which has been a chronic thing for a while. I've been reading books, read a couple chapters in whatever book I'm into. I This is the book I'm reading right now. Kurt Vonnegut, Slapstick. I got it at Thrift Books online because I stopped supporting Amazon. So if you guys have never read Kurt Vonnegut, some great stuff there. I also bought The Alchemist, which I'm rereading a lot of books right now because I'd read The Alchemist when I was, in my early 20s, and I always tell people, that book changed my outlook on life. I don't know if it necessarily has changed my life, definitely changed my outlook on life, and I think all young people should read books like that, and older people. Let's see. Sorry, I'm using my phone, and it's dark right now. See, we got 4 people on, 3 likes. Thank you guys. I appreciate you watching. This is my first live stream on the Spin Cycle, and I don't. I'm just doing it because basically I had nothing else to do right now. My girlfriend and my baby are off at her sister's house, and I'm just hanging out here, thinking about. Well, let me get back to what I was thinking about this morning. Trump just signed a bill to or they just made a deal, Hegseth and Trump, to put a Qatari air base in Idaho. When a few years ago, you could look it up and I might show it on my channel later, Trump was out there saying Qatar was a terrorist nation and an enemy to the U.S. Then they gave him a $400 million airplane. They bought a bunch of his crypto. They laid out the red carpet when he came, and now, Trump is easy. All you got to do is shower him with gifts. You saw Tim Cook from Apple giving him that giant gold bar worth, I don't know, thousands of dollars in the White House, and Apple got an exemption from the Chinese tariffs. The problem is people, small business people. I have a lot of friends that run small businesses. I run a small business per se, kind of, but I used to run online stores and stuff like that. Those kind of people are not going to get, like, I had an online store, where, I mean, a lot of the stuff I sold online was from China, which is everything's made in China now. So you can't really do that anymore now with the. Also in the news today, did you see Trump raised the tariffs? Another, I don't know how he could do it, but 100% tariff on China. Again, I guess it was down to like 30%. I pretty much stopped buying stuff from China because it's just not worth it. You can buy source from other countries, and one way to do it is like I bought an e-bike from China, but it was already imported to the U.S. and it was in Los Angeles. So, they probably imported it before the tax came in, or the tariffs. Tariffs are a tax. Let's see. Jesus is Lord, Amen. Oh, Sakti. Oh, Soksoi. Is that your last name? um, yeah, I was raised Catholic. Um, um, I don't really like the way religion is being used these days in politics, especially with the evangelical crowd and how they see Trump as you know, as the next coming of Jesus. I seem to remember me and my friends used to sit around as kids and read the Bible. We were in Bible school and stuff like that. Catechism, they called it back then. I don't know if they still do. Um, but we read Revelations, and I think, I can't remember exactly, but they said that the devil was going to come, a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, handsome, charming man. That sounds more like Trump to me than the next coming of Jesus. And what he's doing, what he does to immigrants now is definitely not Jesus type behavior. If Jesus was here today, the Republicans would call him a terrorist. Or they'd say he was woke. Hey, Hunter Durst. Hi, how are you? Grace King. This is random, but my friend and I are debating this. What is harder, cross country or soccer? Cross country running? For me, it's harder. I played soccer a lot as a kid. I was a pretty good soccer player, and you know, I hated running, any kind of distance running. So for me personally, cross country would definitely be harder. Um, yeah, I would go with soccer. Is easier. It takes more coordination and skill to play soccer, but it takes less mental discipline, I think, than cross country. Like you have to have. When I was a kid, I do the mile in school, and that was the most distance I would run. But at the same time, I was a good football player, a good soccer player, an okay baseball player. But I was good at any sport that you had to run fast, basically, in short spurts. I don't think that answers your question, but Austin, what the fuck? Austin says, what the fuck? What? The base, the Qatari base in Idaho? Yeah. My girlfriend in high school ran cross country, and I was always in awe of her discipline, especially at that age. It's so hard to be mentally disciplined and not, take off with your friends and dick around. And, if you're going to run cross country, you're going to be good at it. You got to focus on it and do it all the time. A sport like soccer, yeah, you have to focus, but it's much more, of a team sport, and you could rely on other people to help out. Cross country, that's another thing. I didn't really like those individual sports because it was all on you. And that's maybe admitting some of my flaws, but good on you. Keep it up with the cross country. One thing I always regret is not pursuing some sports more when I was in school, because I was really good at some sports and I got laywayed by girls and, partying and all that stuff. don't let that happen to you. Yeah, that's good. 3.1 miles in 80 degrees weather. And it's definitely good to train in the warm weather. It's good to, get your body used to that. I believe cross country, mostly, I mean, it depends where you're from, but I'm live right now. You are inspiring people. Keep going. Thank you. I didn't know I was inspiring people, but I love to hear that. Um, anyway, back to politics. Sorry, I need some water here. Back to politics. I want to know what any of you guys think about. You guys could ask me anything you want. Cross country sports. I've played sports my whole life, but I'm interested to what people think, especially you Gen Z guys, girls, about you know Trump. And I know he's very supported right now by Gen Z, but do you guys actually see what he's doing to the country with cracking down on freedom of speech? We have the posse comitatus law where you're not a president is allowed to use his own military against his own people, which he's trying to do right now. He's definitely dipping his toes in it in LA and Chicago. I mean, did you see on the news, these were American citizens. They had Black Hawk helicopters land and in the middle of the night and take people out of this apartment building. Yeah, they found like 30 illegals in there or undocumented people. Some people say illegal, some people say undocumented. That's but still they took American citizen kids out of their beds in the middle of the night and took them into custody, and they're not all even accounted for yet. So okay, what are the questions you guys got for me? I've been on 20 minutes already. I gotta go back to my girlfriend and baby here soon. Subscriber, hey, do you know Jesus loves you? He died for you and he will give you eternity in heaven if you have faith in him, and heaven is better than anything on the planet like fame or money. Yeah, I mean, I have to be honest with you. After what's going on in the country the last decade or so, or the world, my faith is shaken for sure. Um, I believe that you do have to do good things, whether you believe or not. You need to be a morally upstanding person, and I just don't know. I mean, I admire people who have faith in the next life, but I'm not sure. I'm a trained scientist, and a lot of things the quantifiable data that you learn as a scientist, you know, makes it hard to have a lot of faith, put it that way. So, but I was raised Catholic. My my girlfriend is very Catholic. She is very religious. Like before we had a baby a month and a half ago, we stopped at the church and she lit a candle, and she's Catholic too. I grew up in New York, so it's very Catholic dominated. And yeah, JB Cool Guy Furry says God doesn't exist. And yeah, the jury's still out. We're not sure. And then subscriber, he's coming back soon. The prophecies are coming true. Which prophecies? That we're gonna have the disciple of the devil, Donald Trump, the blue-eyed, blonde-haired, charming, wealthy guy. Just spoke. I'm not even gonna read that one. I'm not sure what he's talking about. Angry man. So, back to the Qatari base. That's why I started this. What do you guys think about the Qatari air base? They just, Pete Hegseth and Trump just made a deal with Qatar to put a Qatari, another country's air base in Idaho. And, I've spent tons of time in Idaho. I used to be like a semi-pro whitewater kayaker, and Idaho is like one of the greatest places in the country or in the world for that. And I love it there, but it's very, very right wing there. And, northern panhandle of Idaho, it would be, if you're not my skin color, it's pretty sketchy to go up there by yourself. And, I would go camping up there by myself when I worked in Montana. Let's see. Jason George, hey brother, love your channel. Keep going your thing. Fuck Trump. Yeah, fuck Trump is right. Trump is, thanks for the encouragement. It's hard sometimes, I don't make money off the channel really. I'm just another working guy. I just feel like I started this channel after the last election. Basically January of last year after Trump won, because I saw how guys like Joe Rogan and Theo Von and they were just making a ton of money, and at the time it was profitable to be in Trump's corner. Now they're starting to back out, but yeah, thanks for the encouragement, man. I appreciate it. Kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes. Yeah, so that's the prophecies. Yeah, I mean, all that stuff is happening, but I'm old enough to remember we had famines, Ethiopia in the '80s. I don't know if you guys remember the commercials in the U.S. and earthquakes. I'm a trained geologist, my master's degree. I know I have a master's degree, but I don't make money like I have a master's degree. But I have a master's degree in geology, and earthquakes are just natural occurring things, volcanoes. Okay, here we go. O'Malley 519. It's amazing news having a foreign nation setting up shop in America that will make America great. Yeah, that's the thing. They're setting up shop in America, and this would never happen. I'm not a Joe Biden fan, really. I think I was a Bernie guy, and shout out to any of you Bernie guys that are on there. A lot of you guys, I know if you're Gen Zers, you probably don't remember the 2016 election, how Joe Biden and those people, pushed Bernie out, basically. They used their money and power to get Hillary instead of Bernie, when it would have just been a fair fight. If it would have been a fair fight, Bernie would have won the primary, and I truly believe he would have wiped the floor with Trump in the general election. Same thing with 2020. Biden won, but he barely won. But again, look back on the primaries. They curved basically the score for Biden when Bernie had actually won the first primary in Iowa, I believe, and maybe Iowa and New Hampshire he won, and then South Carolina, the old-time congressman that's been there forever, basically went all in for Biden, and they voted for Biden because he was more help to black people, which is nonsense. Angry man, they gave us a plane, why not? Yeah. Yeah, they didn't give us a plane, they gave Trump a plane. He's keeping that plane after he's out of office, and according to most people, most experts, it's not going to be refurbished, to be qualified to be Air Force One ready, which has to be able to sustain itself in the air for like a year. If there's a nuclear war, it's supposed to keep the president in the air for like a year without having to land or anything like that. And he's keeping that after his presidency. He says it's going to the Trump Foundation, the Trump Library, which just means it's going to be his personal plane. Yeah, it's amazing news having a foreign. It's something you never really would have seen before with any other president. That's the problem with having a transactional president who's, anybody could buy, basically. I don't know if you remember his first term, after Saudi Arabia basically murdered and cut up the body of uh, Jamal Khashoggi, who was a big, you know, opponent of Saudi Arabia. He was a journalist and he wrote, actual stuff they were doing all the time. And then Trump kind of basically made it go away because Saudi Arabia just gave him a bunch of money, really, is what happened. I mean, they gave his son in law $2 billion. You think that Trump didn't share in that money? Subscriber. And World War I happened, and it was a very big war, and then the Spanish flu happened, and there were abnormally high earthquakes in the 1920s. Yeah, and I don't know, is that written in Revelations that that was going to happen 100 years ago, and then 100 years later, similar things are going to happen, like COVID and more earthquakes, and I don't know. I don't think, if you look at the data, I don't think we have an unusual amount of earthquakes right now. There's more, definitely more typhoons and hurricanes, but I think that's more because of human-induced climate change. I do believe in that. I mean, the science is there. Jason George, no problem, brother. Needed your material to help me feel sane and someone who shares my thoughts about this orange wannabe dictator. Yeah, there's way too many people that love Trump. I don't really get it. I mean, I just think people are too in their own bubble, and if you're in the right wing bubble, you hear only the good things about Trump, and some Trump, super Trump cult fans, they even hear the bad things about Trump, and they still like him. They make up excuses for him. It's kind of crazy. I don't really understand the cult mentality. I've always been a really independent person. I'm even an introvert, even though I have this channel. I'm a complete introvert. When I'm not making videos or online, I'm basically, I have good friends, great friends. I have, a group of friends, but I don't, I'm not always out looking for new friends. Of course, I go out and I'm nice to new people and stuff, but even when I was younger, I hated going to like clubs and stuff, and not just those kind of crowded places. I mean, I did because I liked girls, but. And right after that happens, Matthew 24:9 says, then shall they deliver you to the afflicted and shall kill you, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. One thing I always question about the Bible, it also says stuff like, if you I can't think of any of the quotes now, but like crazy stuff, like if you commit adultery, if a woman commits adultery, she should be murdered by her husband and stuff like that. Can you tell the story as how you came out as gay? I'm trying to help my son. Are you talking about Mike Johnson or? Yeah, why is your son gay? I don't know. I don't have to say this, I think, but I'm not gay. Bernie all the way, yeah. O'Malley 519, hell yeah. Bernie's the man. I'm afraid he's getting too old right now, but I wish he would run again. And we need a new Bernie, basically. Rachel Bosley, how was your day? Pretty good. I'm trying to absorb this news cycle again. I just saw the polling, and 44% of people approved of the job Trump's doing before he got elected, and today a new poll came out that 43% still approve of the stuff Trump is doing. To me, that's just unbelievable. Do they not know what he's doing? Like what he's doing to brown people basically in the country, and what he's doing to basically anybody who dissents. He's clamping down on speech. He's using the whole Charlie Kirk thing. Let's face it. I mean, he probably liked Charlie Kirk, but he's taken this. You know, you see Stephen Miller out there saying they're going to use all the power of the government to debank and take down anybody who says anything bad about the Trump administration. They're just using Charlie Kirk. So that's disheartening. And another disheartening thing is the way the Supreme Court just rubber stamps everything Trump does. I mean, they're changing the laws of the country to help Trump, do his fascistic, crazy stuff to the country. When you came out as gay, was it scary or like a weight has been lifted? I'm not anti-gay, so if I was gay, I wouldn't care, but I'm just happen to not be gay. Um, but I know you think you're getting me by saying that. You're probably a Trumper, because that's all Trumpers really have. you know, if you saw me in person, you wouldn't say that to me because you'd probably be picking your teeth up off the ground. Yeah, it's amazing to me how people are so brave online to say stuff to people that they would never say to them in person. I try not to do that just because I don't say anything to somebody online that I wouldn't say to their face. And that guy, whoever you are, probably wouldn't say that to my face. But you're a Trumper, I think. So Trump's a coward. His followers are cowards. Or maybe Bernie could help guide the future politicians. Past knowledge is always greater. Yeah, and I think he is. With like AOC, I just don't know. And I hate saying this. I think AOC might make a run for president, but she's more likely to take Chuck Schumer's, who's got to go. Chuck Schumer's the worst. But Chuck Schumer's seat as senator, he's just like a swamp creature. Um, but you know, after what happened with Harris, and I wouldn't have picked Harris, but I don't think I think 55 or 60% of our country, even women, won't vote for a woman as president. So that's what worries me if AOC runs, and I think she is, Bernie's like closest protege now. I don't know if you've seen they've been doing that tour together. And I'm not saying we need another white guy or whatever, you know, maybe like a Ro Khanna or somebody like that. It's Obama proved that a black guy could win the presidency, which was amazing. Um, I voted for him, but then he completely disappointed me right after the 2008 election. He went and turned around and bailed out the banks when they let that housing crisis happen, and a lot of you guys probably don't remember that either. But Obama bailed out the banks in 2008 when he should have bailed out the people. Like all the people who took out those prime loans, like most of them basically just lost their house. So whatever money they had paid, down payments, monthly, whatever they had in the house, it was just gone. Like, so that devastated thousands of people. This is another reason Trump got elected. And Obama said, I can't remember who his banking guy was, his finance guy, but they said, oh, we're gonna bail out the banks, which basically means they gave billions of dollars to the banks when they should have just gave it directly to the people who were suffering from the subprime loans. And this, I believe in my heart, was a direct, linear line to get Donald Trump elected. And Donald Trump came in and lied about everything, of course. But, people believe him because he's on television. Hearts or flowers? Truly dead hearts or flowers? I'm live right now. I'm back. How's it going live right now? I'm live right now. Hi, how you doing live right now? Truly dead hearts or flowers? I don't know. Hearts or flowers doesn't matter to me. I don't really do flowers, so. I'm not a big fan of flowers. I mean, I like to look at them when I'm hiking in the mountains, the wildflowers and stuff, but okay, guys, I'm gonna do 5 more minutes, so whatever questions you have, and I'll try doing more live streams. It seems like some people like them, at least a couple of you guys. Some of you guys like to get on there and call me gay. It's just funny to me. If you knew me in person, I'm like the least gay guy ever. But not that there's anything wrong with that. You guys remember Seinfeld back in the day? Not that there's anything wrong with that. No more questions? How about you? I'm live right now. Are you live right now? Okay, guys, I'm gonna take off. Get to making my next video. I really want to do a video. That's a good idea. Why don't you guys give me some videos that you'd like to see? I want to do a video about nepotism. This is a thing that's been on my mind forever. I grew up, without any money, with a single mother of 5 kids. That shaped my perspective a lot. We were on welfare when I was a kid. That's why I think welfare is a good thing. When I went to college, I went to college full time and I worked 40 hours a week as well, all weekend long, 12-hour shifts, just to pay for the extras. And of course, I had to go into debt like everybody else. Um, Although these days, it's the debt's much worse. I think people should just stop paying their student debt and, force force the government to bail out the people for once and stop bailing out the banks and the corporations and all the rich people. Okay, guys, thanks for watching, and I hope you're there for my next live stream. Go ahead and subscribe. Hey, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you again next live stream.